I just finished watching The Bear season 3, and this is for the first time where a series has made me pay attention to its cinematography. And this is not that I was looking for it, it's just something that popped up, and I was like, I see. I see what they're doing there. You know, one thing that you soon learn about cinematography is how much production design and how much a space helps with composition, the things that you're showing in a scene, the information that you're giving in it to an audience. With a show like The Bear, where it's constantly in a single room, this can become monotonous and instantly boring for the audience. So you constantly have to find ways to keep people engaged. And one of the things that the show, rightfully so, has gotten recognition for is the editing and how fast paced and how intense. And people have spoken a lot about this. But I think one less thing that's spoken about is the cinematography. And I wouldn't call this genius cinematography, but I would call it effective and efficient. And it works for the show. So they do a lot of things right? So like right now, I have a scene open. This is from The Bear season 1, episode 1. In this, they've already established the sort of language, cinematic language that they're trying to share. So when you look at this, I want you to notice a lot of their shots that they have, especially of characters, like it's a clean single shot. And in most cases, what I realize is in later seasons, they don't do a lot of these two shots. It's usually individual shots. So in most cases, they don't do a lot of two shots, especially in conversation. Because when you're shooting conversation, they teach you to have this person speaking, that person speaking, a wide of them in coverage and find different angles of doing it. These guys tend not to do that. A lot of times when you're watching The Bear, especially through the edit, is when one character is speaking, the camera is on them and then it flips to the next character and you never get a two shot of those people together in that conversation. It moves on fairly quickly and the camera tends to be super close to the face, which allows them to blur out the background. So the background stops being a distraction to the audience and you're mainly focused on the performance of the characters. Now, I once heard one time that if you don't trust your characters, your actors acting, you stick to close-ups. But that's not the case for The Bear, because a lot of times the emotions that the characters convey is in their faces and you get to see this in just how they're feeling, because there's a lot of internal struggle and we get to understand the internal struggles when we move around with the characters in their day-to-day life. So we already know, for example, what Chef Sydney is going through. We already know what each chef is going through, what Carmy is going through, what this character is going through. So when we're in their face, those little subtleties that they do with their faces, we are able to pay attention to them. These type of shots are the shots that they have, and they don't last long, right? Or when they do last long, it's like you have an understanding of what's going on. And that is one thing where I was like, these people, I don't want to call them geniuses, but they have an understanding that they solved a problem that is a major difficult for a lot of people, especially when you have to work in one single room where the production design is almost boring and you cannot showcase. For example, they work in the kitchen. So we've seen the kitchen from season 1. Now it's season 3. Nothing much has changed. Later on, I guess some would argue, oh yeah, but in season 3, we go from the beef to the bear, which is fair and fine, but also we are still confined to single rooms or in a car, you know. And that's one thing I like about their cinematic language is how attached we are. And a lot has been made about the inserts in the show, how they convey the behind the scenes of a kitchen, and people who work in kitchens probably agree with this. But I think for somebody who doesn't work in the kitchen, who might not be interested in cooking, what the show is able to do is to give you that drama, the dramaticness of the film, which is what is engaging the most, right? And how food plays a pivotal role in the setting of the film. But the cinematography for me plays a major role in capturing the performances of the actors, and it's in the little things that they do, the little subtleties, the little movement of the lip, the disappointment, like when Carmy screams and then the other actress just looks at him like, what? You know, and in each moment when each actor is in frame, they take up the frame and you're not thinking about somebody else. I think one thing that I actually noticed now that I'm looking back at this is in season 3, they don't do a lot of these wide shots, like a lot of these medium wide shots. They don't do this. In season 3, it feels like it's a lot of close up. The camera is more into the character's face and you get to see a lot of them. and it's a lot of clean shots. Like right now, even this, I think they even changed the type of lenses that they were using, because the colors have brightened up. There's more texture to the film, more quality to it. This is a conversation in season 1 between Sydney and Carmy, and if you just look at it, how they were shooting it, this is a long take. And what all they did here, they moved the focus, the rec focus between who's speaking, and we're back, and we're there, and we're back, and we're here, and we're back, and that's just a conversation. Whereas in different shows, what would happen is you'd have Cammy's coverage, Sydney's coverage, wide, super wide, bed-eye wide, back into them, which is good because what you're trying to do is distract the audience just from it's a simple conversation between two people, which is what a lot of times film for me and drama is. It's how they're able to create that cinematic language and how we as the audience have accepted it, and we don't really question it, and we've accepted that this is what the film is, and you don't have to bore people. And I think this show, it deserves all the awards it got, mainly out of basically how they came up with a solution of just creating the story and focusing on the story. It's not a story whereby they need sex or they need action or they need this. It's just a good story, and everybody is sort of pulling their own weight in terms of the actors, in terms of the people capturing the show and giving it to us. And then in the edit, like, I feel like everybody involved in this show just does a phenomenal job. We can see that in season 2, the language changed, the lighting changed. One thing that I've always wondered was, what do they mean when they say the bear is comedy? And I think the genre definition probably for me has to change, because I used to think comedy just means there's a lot of jokes, but some people say because of the way it's edited and the way that they do certain things, it falls under the genre of comedy. But I think for me, this is a very good drama, and it highlights how to showcase drama, and that drama doesn't have to be boring. Drama doesn't have to be this thing where it's so visceral and you're like, fine, it's tugging on my emotions. I feel like the bear does certain things so well that they couldn't just call it drama. The relationships, you're so embedded into their relationships, like these type of shots where you're looking at Richie and Carmy, and you're seeing their relationship when they're arguing, the distance between them, where they're trying to reconnect, but there's that separation of characters and the production design. Like the film, whilst it may not seem like it's well thought out, for me, this is one of the most thought out shows that I've watched in a long time. And that just stems into the acting, her relationship with Sydney in the beginning, how it was not there, and how those moments were captured. But just by the way they looked at each other, you could tell that she didn't like Sydney, more of like, is she threatened? Is this? And then you see that relationship develop, and the camera is there to capture these performances. And I think for us as cinematographers, we owe it to actors, to capture their performances, because they're trusting you. They're trusting you in the moment. They're giving themselves up to these moments, and these moments need to be captured in the right way. And I think that's what the show does, whereby if a lot of looks like this were done in a wide shot, it just doesn't work, in my opinion. Like, it just doesn't work. Those little things that you need, the framing, everything, like, everything is meaningful, which helps the editing team. And I think the editing team loves the DOPs and the camera crews for what they give them to work with, because you can edit it in any way and it'll work. It'll work because the reactions are on the faces, man. And that's one thing that I feel like as an audience member, when I'm watching stuff like this, look at the emotion on her face. Look at the makeup. Look at every little thing. This lady has been pregnant for the past 3 seasons, and you can tell the pain that she's in, the missing of her brother. You can tell the need to connect with the only brother that's remaining, the terrors that she's had with her mom, and everything just comes in together frame by frame in the show. For me, one of the standout actors in this show has always been Tina. Like, her real name is Liza Colon. Like, her performances, man, it's so emotional. Like, you're so invested into the character and into her as a person. Like it feels, you feel for her, you feel for her journey, you feel for that feeling of anxiety that she has, or that feeling of lack of belonging, or that feeling of like just needing approval. Like it comes out of her face, and the only way that you can get it is in shots like this, where if you were super wide on these shots, man, you're not getting this, and that's just the thing that I feel this show really does. And I was listening to one of the DOPs who worked on it, and they were like, they have a 40 to 400, and they go as deep as that in terms of how they capture these things. And you're like, damn, 400 mm. That means the camera can be super far away from the actors, giving them the space that they need to work, but they're right there, and we're in there, and we don't get to see the boring kitchen behind it. Like, those are white walls. They warn you against filming against white walls, and this is what the show does. Like, the bear for me is just phenomenal. Look at this, man. When this guy was suffering, he's like, you don't need to be told what's happening. You know how they say, like, show don't tell. I remember when Ibra was suffering because he has arthritis, I believe, and he has to learn new skills, and he's older now. That frustration of having to learn new things. You're like, man, why should I do this? I'm too old for this. But they just show you what's happening. I'm like, man, and how they're able to capture these moments is just phenomenal. Like the decision making, whether it's the director, the DOP, whoever comes up with how this show is shot, man, massive respect to them. And it's a show whereby it has a lot working against it than for it. Because if you look at shows like Euphoria, where there's a lot of space to play with different things in terms of production design, in terms of the rooms that they are in, the cinematography language of the show, the lighting, and it's shot on studio. I don't know if this is shot in studio, but with this show, you are very limited, right? Because everything is existing within one space. And how do you make that dramatic, and how do you make that interesting? How do you introduce characters? How do you show conflict? How do you do all these things? I think I wouldn't say, like, I don't see the show winning crazy cinematography awards because, people would value certain different things. But I think what this show is capable and is able to do is to make a cohesive show that is believable and that people falling in love with. And granted, like, people should fall in love with the editing. I think it's well done. But without the cinematography, I don't think it would work. And I don't think they would be able to cut it in the way that they do without those cinematic decisions that are made on the day of the shoot. Let me know what you think of The Bear. Have you watched season 3? What did you think of it? Are you ready for season 4? I heard that they shot like 8 episodes of season 4 whilst they were shooting season 3. So that should probably mean they know and they were expecting to lose their actors as soon as season 4 is done, because those guys are slowly becoming bigger and bigger actors.